Hello students, this is Ms. Pereras. I am sending you guys a video for some of the material that you are missing while you're at binationals. This video sort of sets up the ideas that we discussed about diction in order to prepare you for the next assignment, the next activity, as well as an assessment in the future in regards to this objective. So the objective, as you see here, is recognize how diction can impact meaning and tone in a text. So I started the class with giving students a note card and told them to respond to the two images on the board, write down whatever emotion or whatever it makes them think of on one side, and then I would change the image and they would write their response on the other side. So we started with this picture and they were given 15 seconds or so to write things down, and then we're seeing this picture immediately after, which led to a discussion about how, while the subject matter of both is exactly the same, there's rain pouring and there's a single girl in the image, each one evokes a different emotional response. Here, the movement of the dancer, the way her body is angled, the way she's looking up, a lot of words that were thrown around were freedom, passion, excitement, whereas the image here, because of the lighting, because of the way that this the subject in this picture is looking down, her arms are crossed, the words that we saw were shared out were things like loneliness, sadness, depression, anxiety, which led to our conversation about how you can have the same exact subject matter, both of these are a girl in the rain, and entirely different emotional responses. For a photographer, that's lighting, that's angles. For a writer, a lot of that comes down to diction. So in your Google Notes, you're going to add these ideas, which are basically definitions of diction. We start with a basic definition that diction is the choice and use of specific words in speech or writing for an intentional impact. You're choosing your words with a purpose because you have something that you're trying to convey. When discussing diction, you must always think beyond literal meaning. Beyond just going back to the pictures, rain is just water precipitating from the sky, but beyond the literal, there was an emotional response depending on the picture that the student was looking at. Diction analysis means to consider the following. You're going to think about connotation or the emotional association with a word, whether that's negative or positive, the connections that you can make with that word, and the images, ideas, or social associations that pop into your mind, as well as ultimately leading to the overall tone, which is the voice and attitude that a writing will communicate. Essentially, bottom line, folks, is that as we study diction, you must always be asking, why did the author use this word? As a reader, why is the author using this word? What does this word communicate? What is important about this word? And when you transition as a writer, you need to be thinking about what word best communicates my true intention and meaning. And that's going to be something that comes into play in the next few weeks as we move into your persuasive writing. So diction and practice, they were given an activity which you guys obviously won't need to do while you're in binationals, but it allowed them to practice how to create tone and how to think about word choice. So I modeled with them that they would pick a subject and try to create their tone, never actually naming that emotion or using synonyms, but entirely with word choice. So an example of that, I gave them subject matter, was a woman writing about a necklace. That's the subject matter. And then I showed them a sample of writing. I opened the box and saw the shards of glass immediately appear from the case. The brightness reflected from the sun into the diamonds assaulted my eyes. As he took it from the case and coiled it around my neck, I forced a smile. The metal clasp jutted into my neck as he released the thing onto me. When we talked about the subject matter could be joyous, grateful, but ultimately we came up with the tone discussed, and it's all because of diction. We look at shards of glass, this idea of shards, something broken, something incomplete, how she used one thing that we noticed, and I want you guys to be thinking about as you pay attention to this video and these examples, is verb choice is really important. Assaulted, it seems aggressive, it seems uncomfortable. We also taught about coiled. The connotation of coiled is negative, and we also considered connections. What are things that coil? Snakes coil. The image of a snake coiled around a neck communicates that disgust, and discomfort. And we also looked at things like jutted, the description of the necklace, focusing on the metal clasp as the most uncomfortable part of a necklace, helped communicate her disgust. So that's just one sample, and then the students went back to this activity where they were doing it themselves, and everyone walked around and tried to identify their classmates' tones, ultimately leading to our exit ticket for that day. This was the rotations that we did. So this was the exit ticket. I asked them to read this passage. I was slashing at the bushes, trying to bring life from the blood-red buds that would soon be roses. The garden reeked of the new smells of spring. The duty of clearing the shrubs always felt on the youngest of the family. As the obedient little child that I am, I woke up at the break of dawn to complete my obligations. As their exit ticket, they were asked to write down a possible tone and defend it using diction and word choice. So as you're watching this video, I want you to think about what would you say is the tone. Take a second and consider, read it again, and what would you think the tone might be? I hope that you considered tone and considered some possible emotions that were communicated here. Answers that I would have taken in the exit ticket that a lot of people came up with and showed me that they were really understanding. Submissive, resigned, bitter. The big idea behind this lesson plan was that we understand that tone must be specific. I never want to have my students evaluate tone as anger or sad or mad. That's not specific enough. When we look at diction, we really pay attention to the word choice that an author uses. Things like slashing and blood red definitely communicate bitterness. When we look at this idea of submissive, a lot of students had written submissive. It's communicated in words like duty and obligation. The idea, folks, is to be as specific as you possibly can with your tone by really paying attention to the diction. By paying attention to the things like reeked of new smells of spring. This verb right here is negative. It communicates sort of disgust, which goes back to this tone of possibly identifying this as bitter. You also could have said resigned or submissive as you looked at the nouns of duty and obligation, the phrasing of obedient little child. And so this was what we did for the first class that you missed. You also missed the class of the quiz, which was given to you via email. You are going to submit that using the link that I gave you, so please make sure that you do that before you return to class on Monday. This video is just to give you an understanding of diction, to understand the relationship between diction and tone as we practice it in class, and shortly you'll be getting another video that explains the activity in which you will apply diction to your novel. But please watch this video as many times as you need, hopefully only once. I'm sure my voice is probably annoying over recording, making sure that you can walk out and say, I understand what diction is, I understand that it's paying attention to word choice like slashing, blood red, duty, and obligation, and ultimately making a connection to tone. Hope that Binationals is going well so far. You'll be getting another video shortly. Enjoy!